coming. And it was like me watching him going, oh, fucking hell. How am I going to work with that? What am I going to do? He's fixed it. It's fixed. Oh, God. I might as well not be there. He might as well not be there. The audience might as well not be there. So in terms of being present and focused out and allowing anything that comes towards you into you, is the cure, I think, for that notion of control. I do understand that technically there are things that I place in the plays that enable the play to be told. An oak tree doesn't stop and collapse, and there isn't a moment in an oak tree where the actor can just do what the hell they like and say whatever they like. Because there's a play, there's a form, there's a detail, there's a beginning and a middle and an end. I have to honour that. I feel very strongly that our job as artists is to find our freedom within a form, or to find our freedom within a structure. Otherwise, we'll just take all our clothes off and run around, and it would be very boring. So to find that freedom always contained within a form is very important. But for me, the freedom is about being present and being open to the space and the people around you, either actors or audience.
Thanks very much. Could I just ask as well, do you prefer to run things for a short amount of time, or do you like to run things for a long time? I'm intrigued by the fact that your show is running at the moment till next Tuesday, but you're here today, obviously. You're not in London doing it, or are you going back later to do it?
I have Wednesdays and Thursdays off. That's what I have. So we do, because Thursdays is a late night opening at the gallery, so our weekend is Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to do 6 weeks at the Whitechapel. It's interesting in terms of where I think my work sits, and I talked at the beginning about having a strange sort of floaty relationship to lots of different things. So, for example, my plays are written. They're not devised. So that's a bit weird. And they are published, which almost seems to sort of diminish the ideas of them because they've been published. Because ideological plays don't get published, and I sometimes feel that the Academy don't think my plays are too much like plays, and the mainstream don't think my plays are play enough. Do you understand? So trying to find that, and then I can have a 4-month run in New York of a play, and then here a 6-week run, which is a very long time, but actually I thrive from that. And there needs to be a recognition in work that is trying to explore things from the beginning. I won't say experimental work, because I will try and avoid that phrase. But I think it's important to go, that work doesn't only have to happen in isolated one-off performances to an invited audience of friends and academics. Do you know what I mean? I think we should have a duty, a contract of duty to try and make those questioning pieces of work accessible. And the way I make those things accessible is every show I do, I try and put a story in them, So it's not just a mechanistic sort of working through of an idea. There is a pumping heart of a story that keeps us going, and it means that it keeps a long run like that always alive for me, because the story can always be told. We can always find a need to tell that story for a new audience. Is that all right? At the very back, is that Willie?
The Willie Wine Project Art Centre. You've spoken about not being an expert, and I'm inclined to agree with you, because I think that expertise can lead to orthodoxy, rigidity, conservatism. But at the same time, do you think there's a place for tradition, for knowing your theatre history, where it has come from, and knowing why what is, let's say, that naturalistic orthodoxy that we think is completely normal, why that's a very particular instance in the history of theatre, and why, if artists are searching for the appropriate form for their idea, they might have a sense of the palette, if you like.
Yeah, so yes, I was a bit disingenuous in terms of that. What I said as well is I have this experience. I have done big Shakespeares, and I've worn wigs and costumes, and I have sensed the joy of that. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like I've done my time in those traditional forms, and have been very lucky in a way to find myself in a position to, on the foundation of that, to find myself in a position to be able to then sort of readdress some of the tropes that exist in those foundations. But I still think that I am very much based on those foundations. The performance skills that I employ are traditional performance skills, whatever they might be. I might screw with them a little bit, I might deconstruct them, But you can't deconstruct something completely. The thing that you deconstruct still has to be present. I think as well with notions of abstraction as well. To have a piece that is totally abstract is a difficult idea for me. An idea that presents the idea and its abstraction is much more satisfying, if that makes sense. So there are notions of traditionality in my plays, and there's also a notion of challenging of that tradition, and they coexist in the pieces, rather than completely releasing myself from my history. My history is very present in the work. Thank you. Thanks, Willie.
Sarah Type from Create. I'm just quite curious, you mentioned that you were part of the Workers' Theatre movement, and I'm just very curious in terms of how that, in terms of liveness, would have informed your practice.
I made a show called Unity about the Workers' Theatre movement.
Okay.
But it's very interesting in terms of the trajectory of a career. I'm talking about that. I feel like an audience with But having been through a whole shift, so I went to university and I spent 3 years doing Grotowski. That's what I did, doing extreme physical training, as you can tell by the shape I'm in. I then became highly committed politically and then ditched Grotowski because I found the spiritual stuff. I went on a residential where everyone was rebirthing, and I thought, this is rubbish, what am I doing? So I became connected, politically with community, so went into that sort of grassroots. It was in the mid to late 80s where there was still there was funding for that kind of stuff as well, of finding hidden history stories and really connecting the form of where we played with the stories that we told. So we played in non-theatre venues. And much of that was inspired by a dissertation that I wrote about the Workers' Theatre movement, which then led to a play that we produced about the Bristol Unity Players. That's what it was called. The play was called Unity. And I hope there is still a politicisation in my work. And I hope what I've talked about today is not a sort of bourgeois abstract theatre, but is a theatre that is locating its politics not in a journalistic way, but locating its politics in notions of liberation for an audience. Fundamentally or profoundly, rather than those plays where you go and you get a sense that every bloody dialectic is presented by the characters in the plays and they talk to each other and some social complex is addressed. I don't do plays like that, but I feel very strongly that there is something more profound in theatre in terms of liberation that is about how traditionally, kind of what's been happening in the last 100 years is there has been an imbalance of control, where the audience who are the majority, and it is the audience who will change the world, not the actors. It's the audience who are the everyday life, to try and release an authority or a sense of authority in an audience, not by just doing a play that suggests the people have authority, but actually locating it in the formal relationship of theatre. It never used to happen. 400 years ago, there wasn't this divide, And then that divide got placed, and it got placed at the same time as people started to try and, I think at the same time that people started to mistrust the audience's ability, and when actors suddenly had to look like other people rather than just being themselves and saying they were other people. These are devices that then lionize the processes on the stage and reduce the processes of the audience. So I hope there is a thread of that political work still existing in the way I'm making my work today. Yeah, just here.